I will now call to order the special meeting of the Fairfield Planning Commission on November 6, 2024. Roll call. Mr. Feinstein, can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Singh,
Present.
Commissioner Reese,
Present.
Commissioner Paul. Commissioner Paul is absent this evening from our special meeting. Commissioner Greavy,
Present.
Commissioner Matthews,
Present.
Commissioner Werblin,
Here.
and Chairperson Kennedy.
Present. All right, information on providing public comments. Persons wishing to address the Planning Commission on subjects that are not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, provided that no action may be taken on off-agenda items except as authorized by law. The off-agenda items from the public will be taken under consideration without discussion by the Commission and may be referred to staff. And comments will be accepted in person or via Zoom. Public comment instructions. To speak on an agenda item in person, please complete a speaker's card and give it to the secretary before the meeting or at the latest prior to the time for public comments on that item. When joining via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature or press *9 on your phone to request to speak. You will be called on by name and will have 3 minutes to speak. We'll now go on to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
So there are no changes to the scheduled matters. I do want to note that the agenda was listed as a regular meeting. I do want to highlight that today is a special meeting. This is not one of your regular meeting dates, so today is a special meeting. Also, as we saw during the roll call, we have 2 commissioners who are participating remotely, so all of our votes this evening will be by roll call.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second? Thank you. It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Mr. Feinstein, can we have the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Singh,
Aye.
Commissioner Reese,
Aye.
Commissioner Paul is absent, Commissioner Greavy,
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews,
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Werblin,
Approve.
and Chairperson Kennedy.
Aye. The motion passes. Oh, geez, I missed that, sorry. We'll go ahead and go to the Pledge of Allegiance, sorry. Commissioner Matthews, would you please lead us in the pledge tonight? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, sorry about that. All right, now we'll have the approval of minutes of October 23rd, 2024. Are there any changes to the minutes of October 23rd?
Not from staff.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
A second?
I second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes as submitted. Mr. Feinstein, may we have the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Singh,
Aye.
Commissioner Reese,
Aye.
Commissioner Paul is absent, Commissioner Greavy,
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews,
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Werblin,
Aye.
and Chairperson Kennedy.
Aye. The motion passes. Now we'll go on to public comments. This is the time for the public to speak on items not on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. I will now open the public comment period. I do not have any speaker cards for public comment, and no hands are raised online. I will now close the public comment period. Okay, scheduled matters. The next item on the agenda is scheduled matters. For each agendized item, there will be a presentation by city staff. For items that involve application requests, I will ask the applicant to address the commission if they so desire. Then I will open the comment period via Zoom and in-house. I will close the comment period after all comments have been provided and after all our questions regarding the testimony during the comment period have been answered. After the comment period is closed, the commission will deliberate on the item and may have additional questions for staff. We cannot take additional testimony or questions from the public after the comment period is closed. Our first agenda item is item A, Planning Commission Review and Recommendation regarding the Fairfield Forward 2050 project, consisting of a general plan update, a climate action plan, and final environmental impact report for the project. Our presenter is Jesse Hernandez. Welcome.
Good evening, Planning Commission and folks joining us tonight. My name is Jessie Hernandez. I am the Associate Planner for the Planning Division. And tonight I am so very excited to be here presenting to you the Fairfield Forward 2050 project. For tonight's agenda, I'll describe the purpose of our meeting. I'll provide an overview of Fairfield Forward 2050 and the process to date. I'll also provide an overview of the general plan update and climate action plan. I will describe for you the proposed changes that were made to the public review draft. And then I'll provide an overview of the final environmental impact report. And finally, I will outline staff's recommendation for you all and next steps. The purpose of this evening's meeting is for staff to request the Planning Commission to make a recommendation on the adoption of Fairfield Forward 2050. Fairfield Forward 2050 consists of a general plan update, climate action plan, and environmental impact report. The general plan update establishes a blueprint for future growth and development. In other words, it establishes a community vision and policies for implementing or achieving that vision. The climate action plan outlines strategies for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and the environmental impact report assesses environmental impacts for these plans. The general plan update kicked off in December 2020. I'd like to emphasize that public outreach and engagement has been ongoing for 4 years, and this includes repeatedly coming back to the Planning Commission and City Council to present information and request direction. We began in 2020 by compiling research and engaging the community to establish a community vision. We then evaluated potential land use scenarios or alternatives to achieve the community's vision. Once the City Council determined a high-level land use vision for growth, we began developing draft policies. We published these draft policies and elements for public comment in July, and then revised the documents to respond to public comment. And here we are today at our first public hearing, presenting the public hearing drafts to you all. Outreach and engagement are critical to developing a community-based vision and shared goals that reflect the community's needs and preferences. We strove to implement meaningful and authentic public engagement and to be responsive to input throughout this process. I'm not going to review all of these metrics, but I would like to emphasize that we held 20 study sessions with the Planning Commission and City Council. And this demonstrates how staff have reported back to and requested direction at every decision-making point throughout this process. To summarize, we've held over 100 engagement activities, from workshops and online surveys to pop-up activities and stakeholder interviews and meetings. We've engaged a wide range of stakeholders, and we've been responsive to public input and Planning Commission and City Council direction. This slide summarizes the community's vision and guiding principles established in 2021. I'm not going to read it, but I'd like to highlight that the community envisions becoming a more complete city. And by complete city, what we mean is the community would like convenient access to everything they need in their daily lives, from essential services like schools to shopping and recreation choices. I've presented the policies and contents of these plans in detail to you at multiple meetings, so I'm not going to get into the details, and I'm going to keep it high level here. However, I'd like to highlight a couple key strategies in the general plan update. Notably, this plan focuses on and encourages infill development. So the City Council has made it very clear that they would like to improve what's in our existing boundaries rather than continuing to sprawl outward, with a few exceptions. At build-out, the general plan update accommodates an additional approximately 13,500 housing units. We estimate a future population of about 150,000 residents in 2050. This represents about 31,000 new residents. And what I'd really like to emphasize here is that the policies are designed to support not only the existing residents, but this projected growth. For example, we know that more residents means more cars on the road, and so this plan identifies transportation improvements to accommodate this increased traffic, just as an example. Land uses throughout the city will largely remain the same. However, there are areas slated for major land use transformation and changes. These areas slated for transformation are called focus areas and are represented here on this map. The Climate Action Plan, as I mentioned, outlines strategies for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It also aligns with state emission reduction goals. Examples of strategies include electrifying our transportation fleet and reducing vehicle miles traveled. The plan calls for ongoing monitoring and periodic greenhouse gas inventories and climate action plan updates. We received a number of public comments during the public comment period from July to September. I'd like to note that we only received comments on the general plan update and on the draft environmental impact report. We did not receive any comments on the climate action plan. Some of the commenters identified typos, which we've corrected. Others requested refined language, which we incorporated. And then a number of folks requested policy changes or new policies. Any policy requests that staff concluded aligned with Planning Commission and City Council direction, as well as the broader policy framework, we added or updated. Policies that conflicted with Planning Commission and City Council direction were not added. Finally, there were some policy requests that staff deemed infeasible for a variety of reasons. All of the original comment letters are in your Planning Commission packet for this meeting. Attachment 3 also summarizes all public comments on the general plan update by theme and provides staff responses to those comments. I'd like to note that comments on the draft environmental impact report were handled separately. This is because there are very specific state laws that direct us on how we respond to draft environmental impact report comments. Overall, most of the changes made to the public review drafts released in July were minor. There were several that were significant. For example, we updated land use element policy LU-5.5 to increase to permit an additional 100 units at Nelson Hill. I should say to allow the consideration of up to 100 additional units at Nelson Hill. It was previously up to 350 that could be considered. Now it's 450 that can be considered. This increase is contingent on a variety of studies and findings that would demonstrate that environmental issues, circulation issues, and other concerns are adequately addressed. Another significant change was in response to the Airport Land Use Commission's new Travis Air Force Base Land Use Compatibility Plan. When we released our public draft in July, the most recent land use compatibility plan was from 2015. This year in August, they released an updated plan. And so we've revised our plan to respond to their updated plan. And finally, with regards to the agricultural mitigation, we already have a fee on the books that's intended to mitigate developed agricultural land at a 1-to-1 ratio. We have added a policy that will increase that fee, and so now the intent will be to mitigate at a 1.5-to-1 ratio. So what that means is if 1 acre of prime agricultural land is developed, we will collect fees that are intended to conserve 1.5 acres nearby.
Jesse, if I can just interrupt you briefly for a second. Just a correction on the slide up there. For the changes, the ag mitigation fee is an added policy, which is 5.5. We got the policies
Thank you.
reversed. The change to Nelson Hill is an edit to policy 22.1.
Thank you.
And the change for the ag mitigation fee, we got a couple of comments, one from a resident and then one from Solano LAFCO, Local Agency Formation Commission, the agency that approves annexations, and they highlighted that they would like to see that because they're essentially a regulatory body that the city would need to satisfy as a part of developing on some land that we would propose to come into the city. We definitely felt that it was appropriate to increase our ag mitigation fee. And so that's what the new land use 5.5 is. Go ahead.
The final environmental impact report, or FEIR, assesses environmental impacts of Fairfield Forward 2050. I'd like to emphasize that we've properly noticed the environmental impact report throughout this 4-year process in accordance with California Environmental Quality Act law. We also held the required 45-day review period from July to September of this year. Most impacts were found to be less than significant. Significant and unavoidable impacts include permanent loss of farmland, loss of known mineral resource, increased ambient noise at 8 intersections, and increased vehicle miles traveled. This slide summarizes key findings. Again, the EIR was prepared in compliance with CEQA. But what I'd really like to emphasize is that the statement of overriding considerations concludes that the project's economic, social, technological, and environmental benefits outweigh the significant environmental impacts. This is significant because under state law, the city may adopt projects with significant environmental impacts if it's found that the project's benefits outweigh those impacts. Staff recommend that you adopt resolution number PC 2024-12. It's not as simple as saying, yes, we adopt this project. We've actually broken it down into 5 steps here. So first, if you adopt this resolution, you would be certifying the final environmental impact report. And by certifying, we mean that you are saying that it does everything it was supposed to do. So it's saying that we've met CEQA law and, yes, met all requirements under the law.
And before we move forward, let me just make one, just note, you would be making a recommendation to the city council
Yes.
to certify
Yes.
as a part of
Thank
this
you.
resolution.
Thank you. You would also be, if you were to adopt this resolution, you would also be adopting the FEIR findings, Statement of Overriding Considerations, and Mitigation Monitoring Plan. This resolution would repeal certain components and elements of the existing general plan. It would adopt certain components and elements of the general plan update, and it would recommend adopting the climate action plan. Again, as Dave mentioned, this resolution would be your recommendation to the city council. The reason we recommend repealing specific components and adopting specific components is because there are existing components and elements of the general plan that we would like to keep. For example, the 6-cycle housing element was adopted in 2023 and has a planning horizon through 2031. The city's 2 specific plans are also technically considered elements under state law. And so the Heart of Fairfield specific plan and Train Station specific plan are 2 other examples of elements that we'd like to keep. After you all make your recommendation, I will bring your recommendation to the City Council at its public hearing on December 3rd here in these chambers. If the City Council chooses to adopt Fairfield Forward 2050, staff will develop an implementation plan that will prioritize action items and set short, medium, and longer term implementation goals. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
Great. Thank you very much, Jesse. Now is the time for questions for staff. Please hold your comments or deliberations on the item until after the public hearing is closed. Do any members of the commission have questions for staff on the presentation? I'll start with Commissioner Singh.
Yes, thank you so much, Jesse. And my question is regarding the general plan, specifically Section 2 of land use. I think maybe this is a question maybe for Allison, perhaps, or I think this is a question for Allison. But Section 2-28, it's Table 2-2. That's a table for development summary projected build out within the urban limit line. It's not in the presentation, but it is in the general plan. I want to understand what was used to determine the additional development of over 1.4 million square feet of office space. That's approximately 500 square feet, 500,000 square feet more than the projected retail development. And so I wanted to just understand, why was office given such a large increase compared to retail?
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. So at the onset of this process, we had an economic development or subconsultant prepare a report of projections. They came in a range, and those projections are based on regional patterns. So drawing from those projections, we then did an assessment of how much land in the city was underutilized or vacant. And then based on the land use designations that we gave to it, what would the resulting build out be? But I do want to note that much of that office space square footage may also come as part of an ancillary use with industrial use. So it's not all just standalone office. It's really the overall office square footage.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Matthews?
We've had previous briefings where I've asked all the questions that I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Oberlin?
Good evening, and thank you for the presentation. I do have a couple of questions, not about the details of the general plan or the climate action plan. We've had so many wonderful meetings and study sessions, and so I really appreciate that. And I also appreciate you adding some Zoom sessions for individuals who can't, for whatever reason, make it in person, so I appreciate that. I'm just curious, though, about the implementation. If City Council approves, can you just give a very high-level, brief overview of what the next step in that implementation plan looks like? And is there any other community involvement along the way?
The implementation plan will identify next steps. State mandates will likely be prioritized. For example, there's state mandates that guide our any actions that stem from the housing element, for example. However, next steps will really be fleshed out when we develop this implementation plan.
Yeah, and to add to that, it's not that we would need to go back to the public to determine what things need to be implemented. The general plan, if you read through the policies as well as the climate action plan, there's a lot of them direct that things happen. Now, our general plan, as we're proposing to update it, would last approximately 25 years. So it is a long-range document. So some, excuse me, some of the actions wouldn't need to take place for maybe 10 years down the road. Some things are higher priority. So what we envision is that staff would come back with a prioritization of the items in the general plan with a particular focus on, say, the next year, 2 years, 5 years, with everything else perhaps more long-term. But we would share that with you so you would see what staff's recommendation is for the City Council to adopt. Jesse highlighted, state mandates. Some other things I think we'll be looking at, particularly in the early term, would be a cost recovery fee. The general plan update, it's an expensive document to prepare. By law, we are allowed to prepare a fee that we can charge on new development. Because this general plan facilitates new development, we're allowed to charge a fee. So we would look to set a fee that when they come in for development, they do pay a small charge to help reimburse the costs of preparing all the plans for them. We would look at zoning updates. There's a few new land use designations like our business flex. We have some potential annexation areas we'd be looking at zoning for, like the Hale Ranch property. We would also, in the near term, be looking to work with the Solano Local Agency Formation Commission, LAFCO, to have them facilitate the annexation areas that are proposed by the general plan. One of the things that they would have to do is to establish what's called by law the sphere of influence for the city, which shows the areas that would be proposed for any future annexation. LAFCO sets that. And they determine, what's in the next 5 years an area that LAFCO feels is appropriate and timely for annexation. So they would do a study for the city that shows the areas that they believe that we can provide services to in the next 5 years, and that there's a market for annexing. So we think in that in the next year or so, we would be working with LAFCO as well to make sure that we have a sphere of influence so that as developers are ready for the city to consider annexation, we've got all the ducks in a row for that. So those are some of the things I think in the first year, 2 years that we'd be heavily focused on. We'll take a deeper dive into the document and share with you after it's adopted, what else might be early terms versus more longer term implementation items.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese?
I do not have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Greavy?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I have two that I'm going to ask here. They're not deliberations. So several people have asked me about two areas, the Sassoon Valley overpass and the Sassoon Valley off-ramp haven't really been integrated into the future, of the general plan.
So they are a part of the plan.
Okay.
Again, my presentation was high level, so I didn't get into all of the details. So what you've mentioned, I believe, are part of STA's I-80, I-680, and SR-12 interchange improvements project.
See, and when I go to the STA site, it doesn't mention, because they consider that the city's responsibility, not part of STA. So
Oh, I thought you mentioned off-ramp.
the on-ramp, the potential new on-ramp that we will need there, I didn't see that anywhere in the STA phase plans at all. So that's why I was curious, because
Sure.
yeah.
I've recently been, and it is there.
It is there
It's like
now?
option 5 or 6. It's further
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, it's one of the later packages,
Do you want to speak to it?
although
So
the packages aren't.
It is in the plan. My consultant showed me where it
Sorry.
is. So I'll bring her up and she can speak to that.
Chairperson Kennedy, in the general plan, page 4-12, table 4-5, the Sassoon Valley Road and Pittman Road potential overcrossing widening, including improved bicycle and pedestrian access over I-80, as well as improvements to the westbound on-ramp at Sassoon Valley Road.
Awesome, thank you, sorry. All right. Any other questions? Okay. I will now open the public hearing. I have one card, and that would be Ms. Monica Brown.
Good evening, everybody. So my name is Monica Brown, Board of Supervisor representing District 2. You alluded to a few of them, but I'm going to do my normal BITCH, which is, why are we in a hurry to do it this in December and November and January? Oh, my God. November and December. It is holiday time, and I bring to the table that when I got elected and found out we had a board meeting 2 days before Thanksgiving, I got that changed. We are never doing that again, because you're asking staff to be working on holiday time, plus people are not here. The other concern that I have, and so let me read what information I got from the county, because I sent them an email saying, the Planning Commission is meeting tonight, and the meeting is to send the plan to the council for final approval. Is this plan looking okay? What are the thoughts? We have not seen it. We got a letter on Monday telling us that they were holding a meeting to provide a response to ours and other comments. We're trying to coordinate how we get information related to this. If there's a way that we could reach out to the county, that would be great. So I asked that maybe this should not go on December 3rd, because we apparently haven't had an opportunity. It sounds like you guys have already decided that Hill Ranch is part of the city. That's not true. That has not gone through LAFCO. Nelson Hill, around Nelson Hill, you guys cannot expand a road. And you're going to be putting in anywhere from 350 to 450 houses up there. I know it passed city council, but that doesn't mean you have to bless it. And so there's just certain things on this one that I'm truly not really happy with, but I'm just here to let you know that there's a lot that's going on, but I think the fact that there isn't a lot of public tonight probably tells you that there isn't enough information out there. And please come and talk with the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Dwayne Crom.
Good evening, commission members and staff and the public. So my name is Dwayne Crom. I live in the city of Fairfield. You probably saw the letter, the comments I submitted about the general plan and the EIR. I'm glad that the recognition of the new airport land use plan has been incorporated into the into the changes you've made. I still have deep concerns about the Hill Ranch property. So I kind of want Monica to stick around. So the county is going through a pretty elaborate process about how to mitigate for loss of ag land, and particularly prime ag land. The county is looking at a 3-to-1 ratio. I mean, this is ongoing right now discussions and board level decisions about the vast problem we have in the country of losing prime ag land. Having a 1.5 now to 1 ratio, but fee-based, not land-based. I mean, one of the things that the county has in their draft language is you have to acquire land. You can't just write a check and think that, oh, it'll go somewhere else. You have to acquire land in proximity to the prime ag land that's being developed. So writing a check is, it's a nice way for people with a lot of money to send their problems somewhere else. But prime ag land is just irreplaceable. And part of the problem, and this gets to part of what LAFCO addressed in their letter to you, when you have a piece that sticks out into the valley. I mean, this is this is sticking a thumb into the Suisun Valley strategic plan, sticking a thumb out there and saying, we don't, my read is the city doesn't like the strategic plan because it limits the city's ability to develop within Suisun Valley. Suisun Valley is, I think you've probably all figured out or have been out there. It's thriving. It's incredible. And most of that new winery type economic development is, of course, north of the freeway. But as these things continue, that land south of the freeway, in terms of having very similar development as we're seeing north of the freeway, is going to happen. But it needs to be preserved for wine purposes and farming purposes. The concept that you're going to have something farming related, but you take prime ag land out to have something kind of nebulous that'll support ag. This is not good when we're in a country, a country and a state, and a region, where we're losing prime ag land at a pretty rapid rate. So, if you truly value ag land, if you truly value the Suisun Valley, I urge you to vote no on the Hale Ranch piece. I urge you to not certify the EIR, particularly regarding the Hale Ranch property piece, because it's inadequate mitigation. I mean, the original draft EIR that said it was infeasible, there were no feasible mitigations. I clearly was mocking that in my written comments, so that's been somewhat responded to. But it's still way lacking in what's needed to be done to protect and support the thriving Suisun Valley. So please, I'm asking you to change your recommendation, to not go along with staff recommendation on Hale Ranch.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
All right, I don't have any other speaker cards. Are there anybody in the public who'd like to speak? If not, I have 0 hands up. And would staff like to respond to any of the issues raised by the commenters?
Yeah, I can respond to a few comments. We really value engagement and collaboration here, and rest assured, we have collaborated extensively with county staff. I myself have met with multiple county staff on at least 3 occasions in the last 2 years. In addition, I have documentation of the letters we sent using certified mail to multiple county staff. We've also met with LAFCO staff and presented to the Airport Land Use Commission. And so we've done our best to keep county staff informed. Secondly, Hale Ranch is not a part of this city. It is not shown to be a part of this city on our maps. It is, it would have to go through the proper annexation process through LAFCO. The city of Fairfield cannot unilaterally annex any property. There will be an extensive process if this plan were to be adopted by the city council, and it would go through that process and be and the final determination, of course, would be by LAFCO staff. With regards to agricultural mitigation, the 1.5 to 1 ratio came in part from county staff comments. Again, you can see that original comment letter yourself in the attachment that we've provided to you. But I also have email documentation of county staff explaining their comments if that's needed. However, county staff commented that we should meet their current on the books standard of 1.5 to 1 mitigation, which we have done.
Yeah, and a couple of other points to add to that. City Council and the Planning Commission looked very closely at a wide range of alternatives for potential annexation in the area around Hale Ranch, including essentially all the land connecting from Anheuser-Busch all the way over to Cordelia, looked at alternatives on the north side. Those were discussed in detail, very robust discussion. Ultimately, on the advice of the Planning Commission and then ultimately agreed to by the City Council, the decision was to focus just on the Hale Ranch area. The city's running out of job-creating land, industrial land, that sits right next to the truck scales, the freeway, Anheuser-Busch. As a part of this plan, tens of thousands of acres of the Sassoon Valley would be untouched, would be essentially by policy of this general plan set aside, not looked at for annexation. So you're looking at 100 to 200 acres of land in this area. So it's a relatively small area of the whole valley, and particularly compared to what we were looking at as some of those alternatives. So this is definitely a very scaled back focus for that, and particularly to achieve a high priority goal for the city, which is job creation and to create opportunities for advanced manufacturing, food and beverage, which are the city's specialty, as well as those kinds of industrial uses that can benefit Sassoon Valley, such as larger wineries, things that may not be appropriate in the valley itself. So these decisions and the recommendation to include this in the general plan didn't come out of the blue. Lots of discussion on it. We certainly recognize the importance of farmland. From staff standpoint, we believe that farmland in the county, compared to what this plan could be, compared to previous general plans, really does focus heavily on the infill and protection of farmland. So with that, I will conclude my comments.
All right, thank you. I will now close the public hearing and return to the commission for deliberations. We will start with Commissioner Singh.
Thank you. I just want to say that this general plan, climate action plan, and FEIR, it's been in the works since December of 2020. And I believe originally this was supposed to be a 2-year project, and it was extended beyond the initial 2 years to 4 years now. Well, we're in November of 2024. And so the amount of outreach, the amount of detail into this general plan has been incredible. Like it was shared in the presentation, 60 plus interviews and meetings with stakeholders, 20 plus study sessions, 12 pop-ups, 9 community workshops, 10 GPAC meetings. That's incredible outreach. And so the general plan, climate action plan, and FEIR, it looks good.
Thank you. Commissioner Matthews?
I just want to say that as a commission, we really respect and appreciate Monica Brown as our county Board of Supervisor member participating with this, and appreciate that comment. That said, I'm not sympathetic to the timing for the reasons that Commissioner Singh just mentioned. And with respect to the ag land, I am supportive of the efforts that staff have made and following the county recommendation. And again, this is not a commitment to do anything. This is just a setting forth a vision that will take years to actually implement, and when and if it does, it'll go through a variety of extensive discussions at that point in time.
Thank you. Vice Chair Werblin?
Thank you. I do have a question for Madam Attorney. Are we as commissioners allowed to ask the public questions? I do want to ask Supervisor Brown a question about one of her comments. Is that appropriate?
I would ask that, since the public hearing has been closed, if you have questions, you can direct them to staff. And then if it's the chair's desire to reopen the public hearing, then it can be reopened, and the questions would come through staff, and it would not be directly from the commissioners.
Thank you. So I can
Go ahead and ask the
I'll ask staff, whomever want to answer. There was a comment that we weren't notified, and so I'm curious, I wanted to understand that comment. I'm assuming that meant as in the staff role and not as an individual citizen. And then what does that collaboration look like? You mentioned that you had some meetings with some of the county staff, but is that just one-to-one, or is there something official? Is it agendized? I just want to hear a little bit more about that. Appropriate?
We had a variety of meetings. We also invited county staff input throughout this process. So for example, before we even provided the draft policies, or excuse me, I shouldn't say that. While we were developing the draft policies, before we even had a complete draft, we shared them with key stakeholder groups, including county staff, and requested their input and received their comments before we even brought them to you or the city council. So that's one example. We've had discussions with senior leadership. So we've had a meeting, for example, with David Gassaway participating with county staff. I can certainly follow up and give you a list of meeting dates and times, and that would probably jog my memory as to more of the specifics of what we discussed. But two examples I can point to. The first I've mentioned is during the development of the draft policies, and then of course before we before the public comment period started, we noticed key stakeholder agencies as well as any stakeholder who indicated they wanted to be noticed using certified mail. So of course I have copies of the letter. I also have copies of the certified mailing receipts. And then, of course, I think that's further indicated by the fact that Solano County staff provided formal comment letters during the public comment period that are in your packet. So there are formal comment letters from not only Solano County planning staff, but also LAFCO.
And to be clear, LAFCO's it's an independent body. There's a lot of relationship, though, between LAFCO and the county. But as Jesse mentioned, they had opportunity to review the draft, provided us those comments. We've responded back how we've addressed their comments. Your action tonight is certainly not the final action. There's close to another month if the county staff feels they need more time to provide comments. They have all the way up until the council hearing to do so.
I appreciate it. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you for the presentation. I had the opportunity to attend multiple study sessions where I personally could share my input and ask questions as a community member. And I just want to say I truly appreciate the city's efforts to make the planning process accessible and inclusive. And I think by offering multiple sessions across different days and times, both in person and via Zoom, the city really created a space for a wide range of perspectives. So I want to just commend both the city and the community for the time and care invested in developing this draft plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gravy?
Thank you. Again, my goodness, Jesse, the work that your team has done and the work that the city council has done is phenomenal. maybe again reassure the Monica Brown that I think the reason there's no one at this meeting is because it's all been said, it's all been done, and they feel very comfortable with where we're at. And the cool thing about this is the size and scope of what we've brought together, what you have brought together for us as a community is phenomenal. And as you, as David mentioned, as well as yourself, this isn't cast in stone yet. This is still a work in progress with all of our community leaders, including the county. So I really support where we're headed with this. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, my turn. So first off, I want to thank all the individuals who sent in comments. There were a lot of great comments. Some were very specific to the general plan. Others were just adding elements, like one resident about blue-green elements and becoming a tree canopy city that would help lower the greenhouse gases in our city. So there was a lot of very, very good comments by people even in our audience today. So thank you for that. My thing, I agree with our other commissioners here. It's been talked to this start. If we go back and look at 4 years ago, and we were talking tens of thousands of acres, and God, look in the whole valley north of 80 going away, and it got whittled down to basically 2 parcels that were part of that with Nelson Hill, which I just don't understand the ingress egress issues there, but and the same with Hale Ranch, which is just such rich, vibrant soil that we'd be losing. It's not dry. It's not a dry farming type soil. It's great soil, but with that, the thing that I'm going back to is government speed will be the 2 words on this, because these parcels are a city want. They're not. It's to be considered. This is not a mandate, and so when it goes to LAFCO, that's just the first step. That can take, forever in itself. Then it's got to go to the Planning Commission, and it's got to go through all these processes that'll take the way I mean at least 10, 15 years. So I understand where everybody's coming on this. I support protecting our farmland, and I think with this general plan through these 4 years, we have and commission, everybody in this room and out there has done an extremely good job of protecting tens of thousands of amazing farmlands for that. So that's my comment there, and I will now go to a motion. Do we have a motion to approve 2024-12?
May I just ask if, Ms. Hernandez, if you could change the slide, please? Thank you.
The 5 processes?
The recommendation slide.
There we go.
Perfect. I will make the motion since I requested the slide. I will make a motion to approve or to adopt resolution number PC 2024-12. Number 1, certifying the final EIR. Number 2, adopting the final EIR findings, a statement of overriding consideration and mitigation monitoring plan. Repealing, number 3, repealing certain components and elements of the existing general plan. Fourthly, adopting certain components and elements of the general plan. And then number 5, adopting the climate action plan.
And to clarify, this resolution would make a recommendation to the city council to do all of those things.
And to make a recommendations to the city council to do
Yes.
all those. Thank you, Dave, for that clarification.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution. Mr. Feinstein, may we please have the roll call vote?
Yes, Commissioner Singh,
Aye.
Commissioner Reese,
Aye.
Commissioner Paul is absent, Commissioner Greavy,
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews,
Approve.
Vice Chairperson Werblin,
Aye.
and Chairperson Kennedy.
Aye. The motion has been moved and seconded to approve the resolution, so it'll go on to the City Council December 3rd at this point. Thank you. Information and communications, director's reporting, commissioner comments. Mr. Feinstein, do you have any items for the director's report?
Yes, I have 3 items. First of all, you'll recall last month, we had a public hearing on an appeal by City Church for the zoning administrator's approval of 2 use permits for their operations that also included a condition that they pay outstanding fines, and the commission essentially approved the use permits but agreed with City Church and removed the condition for the fines to be taken care of before they operated. So I want to let you know that the City Council, as is their right, has the ability to review your decision. Essentially, it's called a call-up in the city's code. If two council members request that a planning commission decision be reviewed by the City Council, then it gets agendized for them to take the final action. 2 members of the council have asked for this item to be called up. So on November 19th, there will be a public hearing at the City Council meeting on the 19th where council will essentially take the final action on that project. And as with your hearing, it's what we call a de novo hearing. They can look at it from any perspective. They could deny the use permits outright. They could support your decisions to approve them without that condition to pay the fines, or they could approve the use permits and reinstate that condition. So we don't know how that will play out, but just be aware that on the 19th, that will be on the agenda for the City Council. Piece of very good news. We recently had a retirement of one of our staff, Tendai Matunga. And so we are now recruiting to backfill some of the staffing that he filled. For this position that we're recruiting for, it would be either a junior or an assistant planner. We've got bigger picture plans for how we refill all of our staffing needs, but we're currently recruiting for either a junior or an assistant planner. We'll hire one or the other depending on qualifications for who we get. But I will note that we had a very good response. I've seen some recruitments, and I've talked to some of my colleagues in other cities, and they have challenges getting good recruitments. We had over 60 applicants, many of whom were very qualified, including a number of a lot of people who are relatively local. So we are very hopeful that we're going to get probably somewhere on board by the very beginning of the year, fresh face, and we're excited about that. And finally, we do not have at the moment any items scheduled for you for the remainder of November. We do have items for your first meeting in December. So tonight you will be adjourning to your next regularly scheduled meeting, which is next week, but expect that that'll be canceled. And as always, unless there's something super high priority, we don't have a meeting the night before Thanksgiving. So looks like this is your November item, but we'll come back in December with more for you to take up. So with that, I'll conclude my comments.
Thank you. Commissioners? Commissioner Singh?
Yes, so I just wanted to say, well, actually, I wanted to share with you guys an incredible drink that I discovered just earlier this week. It was at Boba Love off of Gateway Boulevard. They have this drink called Dirty Tiger. It's absolutely incredible. It's not planning related, but I highly recommend that you guys try that out. It was really good, so wanted to share that.
Great. Commissioner Matthews? Vice Chair Werblin?
I do have a question. Now that the time has changed and it gets darker early, is there any security provisions for us walking to our automobiles?
I'll walk you out.
Yeah, we don't have anything officially set, but anyone who wants a company walking out, please let your colleagues or myself know. We're happy to do that for you.
No,
Yeah.
very good. Commissioner Reese?
I do not have anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Greavy?
Well, heck, happy Thanksgiving, one and all.
Thank you. My only thing is, we had quite a few grand openings and events since our last meeting out at One Lake, the affordable housing apartment complex was really interesting to see that. Raising Cane's is now open in town. Learned a lot about plasma, the CSL plasma grand opening, and how plasma is collected here and is used for the production of medicines. It's not, going to the hospitals, for any type of thing. It is specifically to create medicines. So learned that. That was pretty interesting. And then the 2 Fridays ago, there was Art Walk downtown. That was really cool. Seeing the arts community really starting to take off there, and it'll be interesting to see how that adds more vibrancy to downtown and for our citizens to go take. And that's all I have. So with that, we will adjourn to our next regular meeting on November 13th, 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.